This video, we are going to go over the Excel Day 4 packet, which is titled Conditionals. In this packet, you are going to learn how to build on what we've learned about formulas to start making your formulas do some work for you in your spreadsheet. So in your notebook, you should see the packet. On the first page of the packet, it talks about cell styles. With cell styles, I'm going to scroll down to the second page of the packet so you can see an example of what we're talking about with cell styles. Cell styles in this section here, it is just any sort of formatting that you want to automatically apply to the cell. For the most part, we're talking number style, we're talking color, and we are talking font. So what you can do is if you have information in Excel, you can go into this Excel style drop down here to get those options that you just saw in the packet. Or what you can do is you can create a custom cell style. So if you want something very specific, you can go into this option here. We'll give it a title called sample, and then click on this format button. When you do that, you have all of these different options here. You can choose the number format, you can choose the alignment, you can choose the font color, the font size. You can choose whether or not there are borders, and you can choose the color fill. So take a minute and create a sample one. For example, I want to leave mine as general. I want it to leave the alignment just the way it is. The font, I'm going to change to that one in size 14, and we will do green text. I would like borders all the way around. So add those borders in. And for the fill, I'm going to do a light blue. I'm going to click OK. So now I can click OK here. And if I select some cells, go into cell styles, I can click sample. And then anything I type in these boxes will be in that style I just created. All right, moving on to conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is similar to what we just did, except it's going to apply a rule to your data. So for example, there's a good example right here. Say you had a list of test scores and you wanted to highlight all of the failing test scores. You would use conditional formatting, and what that would do is it would change all of the failing test scores to a specific color. So we are going to do that with this spreadsheet right here. Take a moment, pause the video, copy this spreadsheet of golf scores into your Excel. Once you have your data into the spreadsheet, now we can start going in and looking at the formatting. The first thing we need to do is we need to highlight the information we want to apply the rule to. So we are going to apply the information to the data in the score column. So if you go under cells, you have under conditional formatting, you have a couple different sample conditional formatting that is already there and ready and waiting for you. If one of these works for what you need, that's great. What we need to do today, though, is to create a new rule. So we are going to create a custom rule that works just for us. So we are going to do one that says format only cells that contain. We want to do cell value. We want to set it to equal to. And then we want to set it to 1. Because what we want it to do is we want it to turn any cell that has a hole in 1, like this one right here, to green. So any cell here that has the number 1, we want it to turn green. We are going to click Format. We're going to go to Fill, choose green, click OK. You see a little sample there of what it's going to look like. Click OK. And you're going to notice that as soon as you click OK, cell C6 turns green because it has a hole in 1. Any other cell that you put a 1 in for a hole in 1 will also turn green. That's how you can test to make sure that it is working correctly. So you can keep scrolling down. The next thing we're going to cover is the if function. So there's a description of the if function in this top paragraph here. It says the if function determines if something is true or false and is set up in the following way, and it gives a sample right there. So what it's going to do is it's going to read the information in a cell. It's going to determine whether or not that information meets a set of criteria you have set up. And if it does meet that set of criteria, it will put one piece of information in the cell. And if it does not meet that criteria, it will put different information in the cell. So a good way to really understand how this works is to just do it. And then it will probably make more sense as we go along. So we're going to keep using this golf example, and we are going to add a column titled par. In par, par means whether or not you've met the suggested number of strokes for a hole. So in hole 1, the golf course says that you should be able to get from the tee to the flag in 3 strokes. This player made it in 2 strokes. That means they would have made it in par. Down here, say this was a 4. The suggested number of strokes was 3. The player did it in 4, that would be not par. So we want to put a function in here that will do all of this thinking for us. So the function that we are going to put in is right here. So we are going to start like we start every function with equal sign if. If statements will always start with if, and then we put our parentheses for our test. Now the first part is going to be the logic test or the condition. So what we would like to do is we need to decide whether B2 is greater than or less than C2. So our function is going to be B2 minus C2. And if that equals 0, we're going to put comma space. You're going to notice that it switches over here on Excel from logic test to now value if true. If B2 minus C2 equals 0, we are going to put par. Then we are going to put comma space again. You see in between value with true and value with false, there's a comma space. Then we are going to put not par. Now, the one thing that I'm missing in my formula are quotation marks. If we want Excel to put in straight text, not numbers, but words, we need to put them in quotation marks. Then I'm going to close the parentheses and hit enter. So now we can look and see, since 2 is less than 3, it does not equal 0, it's not going to be par. If we were to change this to 3, so that B2 minus C2 would equal 0, then it changes to par. So look back at this again. If you double click on it, you can see the formula right in the cell, and you can test it. I click on logic test. It's going to highlight the logic test. Value of true is what it's going to put in if this logic test is correct. Value of false is what it's going to put in if it is incorrect. Now I'm going to copy that down using data fill, and then it should make all of those decisions for us. To test it, you can play around with the numbers and see what happens. If you change the numbers, your column D should change as well. Now to continue on with this, we can do nested if statements, which means that we're going to take this initial if statement that we wrote, and then we have our logic statement, our logic test. We've got our value if true, but then maybe we want to give it more options. So instead of par or not par, maybe we want to add more options in. So maybe we want to put over or under or par. So if that's the case, we would need to run a second and a third logic test. So we would need to nest our if statements and stack them inside of each other. So pause the video, copy this if statement in here, and then I will walk you through it in just a minute. All right, so now that we have the statement written out, let's talk about it. So we've got our initial logic test here. Same as it was before, B2 minus C2 equals 0. We still want it to say par if that is true. However, now if that is not true, so if it does not equal 0, we want to run a whole nother if statement on it. So a second logic test. We can click into that one, and that one is if B2 minus C2 is greater than 0, so anything higher than 0, we want it to say under. If it is not, if that is not the case, we want it to say over. You're going to also notice that at the end of our formula here, we have two different parentheses, and our parentheses are color-coded. There's a red one there, and a red one there, and then a black and a black. The more nested if statements you have, the more colored parentheses you will have. So always count the number of parentheses at the end of your if statement and make sure that it matches the number of ifs. So if I have two ifs in my if statement here, I should have two parentheses at the end of the statement. I hit enter. I'm going to use data fill to copy it down. And now you're going to notice that some say over, some say under, and some say par. Now what you can start to do is there's an extra credit opportunity here in your packet. You can make an if statement with these 7 different golf terms. If you can make this if statement work in your packet so that when I click into this column, I'm able to change your scores and see ace, double eagle, eagle, all of these terms. If you can get that to work when you turn in your homework assignment, you will get extra credit points. Otherwise, that is all the information we cover in this packet. Move over to the Excel worksheet for day 4 and work your way through it. This one is only 1 page, so there's only one spreadsheet for you to work on, but there are a lot of steps that you need to take on this page. So make sure you go through all of them. There is one at the very bottom. When you're all done, save your work as an Excel file and upload it to On Campus.